So welcome to Module 3 of the New Patients on Tap formula. This is Lesson 1, Website Essentials. What you need from a website that's going to make you money 24/7, and that is possible. So at the end of this module, of these 3 lessons in this module, you should have a clear understanding of what a website that brings you in new leads and thus makes you money on autopilot should look like. Now, if you don't believe that this is true, I'm recording this in mid-February, and over the Christmas period, we were closed for 2 weeks. And when we came back from Christmas, we had well over 100 emails coming in via leads and so on from our marketing, all or most of which would come through our website. Despite the fact that we were closed, I was at home. Our website does this for you. And if your website at the moment is not doing this, well, at the end of this module, you will know what to do to have that happen. So why do you even need a website? Well, you need a website as a vehicle to entice your ideal patient to begin the relationship with you, so you can initiate that conversation that will lead them to the obvious answer that your clinic is going to be the place that will help them reach their goal. So what we're trying to do, like we talked about in the last module, is we're trying to get your skeptical lead to gradually come to the conclusion that this issue is not going to go away. I'm not going to reach my goal without some help. And the place that's going to help me is your clinic. Now, your website is going to be like the center of a web that you will use to begin this relationship or to start this conversation. Now, the conversation pre your initial appointment can vary in length depending on how skeptical your patient is and depending on your follow-up system and how good you are at getting that patient to follow through. So there's a lot of common mistakes that we see with clinic websites, and I have made every single one of them. At the time of recording, my website is my 5th website, and I would say the first 3 were a complete waste of time. They looked really nice, but they didn't really do a whole lot. My 4th one was much better, but it was the way I had it built. I built it on WordPress and I had to use 4 or 5 different software systems. It was quite laborious, took an awful lot of time. So my current iteration, which you will see in this module, is much better. And that's the kind of thing I want for you. So some of the common mistakes, again, like I said, all of the ones I've made is, number 1, letting a graphic designer design your website. So when you go and you look for someone to design a website, you'll Google on all likelihood, or you'll ask someone. And usually the person that's building your website for you has a background as a web designer or a graphic designer. And what they tend to do is they tend to, naturally because of their training, is they tend to prioritize how it looks. And that is not important. It's not your priority. Your priority is a website that makes you money. It's no good having a fancy looking website that doesn't bring you any new patients in. You need a website that you prioritize how it functions from the psychological viewpoint of what is going on in your potential leads head. And that website has to be built around that. And having a website that is all nice colors and lovely pictures and looks really pretty is great. But if it doesn't actually do what we need it to do, which is to fill your inbox with potential leads, well, then that's not what we want. And letting a graphic designer who doesn't understand any of this concept is the mistake you'll make. So if you're going to get a graphic designer to design your website following this module, you need to make sure that you're in charge of what happens in the website. Don't let them have free reign. Like I said, there's no thought put into the psychology of patient decision making, which we've talked about in the last 2 modules. So the website is not built to encourage your patient or your potential patient to come to the conclusion you want to, which is to take the next step that you're looking to do. So the only option you'll tend to find in most of these websites is they can book now. Now, on some of the better websites, you can book online, which is better than not booking online. But even if you have that, the only other option you'll give them is call me and book now. and nothing else. And like I said in module 1, research tells us that only between 2 and 5% of the public, of your ideal patient who's going around town where you're living, is ready to take that choice. And you're leaving 19 out of 20 people who need your help, who could benefit from your help, but who are not ready to book now with nothing to do. And we don't want that. We want a website that tries to capture as many of those people as we can. So, like I said, no option for 95% of your website visitors who are just not ready to commit to spending money for various reasons. Another mistake that we find people will make with websites, and I've been guilty of this, is they build it and then they leave it alone and they don't touch it. So they'll put a lot of money into it, because building a website is not cheap. It can go anywhere from 3,000 to 6,000 euros, depending on where you go. If you're getting your nephew to do it for 500 quid, well, if you're a medic and your patient says, well, I'm going to get my nephew who did a bit on it to treat me, well, then what do you think is going to happen? It's going to be the same with your website. You need to have a professional do this. This is an investment that you're putting in, and this will be your hardest working employee. And that money you put in, if it's done correctly, if you follow the new patient on tap formula for a website, will pay you back over and over again. But simply building a website and then leaving it and not changing it consistently by adding blogs, by using SEO and so on, as we talk about in further modules, will mean that your website will not be powerful enough, and Google and the other search engines will not show it to your potential patients. So it's something, your website, what I want you to start to think about is that your website is a living organism that you need to consistently feed and look after. If you're trying to be all things to all people, and in my case, because I'm a podiatrist, I've said anyone with a foot, but let's say you're a physio and you want to you want to treat everybody out there who has an MSK problem, or whatever happens to be, you can't be all things to all people. Your marketing needs to be more specific. Now, we'll go through each particular page and what I mean by this. I do understand, you need to understand that there's certain pages that will be a bit more generic, but the majority of your pages will be much more condition specific, and you will get a better result when that happens. So you need to be thinking, like I said to you earlier, that your website is like the mothership or the control center for your new patients on tap formula, for the marketing system you're going to put in. And your website sits here in the middle. And there will be certain times patients will just ring you because the GP told you to come and see them, or Mary next door gave them your number. I get that, but for the majority of your patients, and this is how you'll scale your business. You will use your website as the entity that you will drive the majority of your marketing towards. So you drive your leads towards the website. So if you're doing a Google Ads, for example, you will drive them towards a landing page on your website. If you're doing organic search, which is where you write blogs and they naturally turn up, again, you're driving them towards your website. Even word of mouth. So you can have a combination of, in my clinic and in my clients' clinics, we would have where a patient would be referred in by their next door neighbor. Their next door neighbor then will get a little gift in the post, and you might have a little link that they can go to recommend more people, and so forth and so forth. So think of it like this, that your website, in the majority of cases, you're trying to drive traffic to your website from these multiple streams. The worst thing to do would to become dependent on any one stream. So I've seen in the past businesses, and they're completely dependent on Facebook ads, for example. And then what happens is Facebook might ban them, or they might change their algorithm, which is what's happened with Google in the past a few times. And their one stream of leads disappears. So what we want to do when you're a new patient on tap formula is build multiple funnels, multiple streams, all coming in to your middle, which is your website, which you own. And that builds your database of leads and patients. And once you have a database, that's your business. That's something you can nurture and mine over and over again to scale up your clinic. So what does your website actually need to be truly effective? So it has to be all about your ideal patient. So when you're writing the copy for your website, It's written for your ideal patient. It isn't written. So in my case, mine is Noreen, like I mentioned earlier, the lady in her 60s. It isn't written for John, her husband. It isn't written for her granddaughter who might have a verruca. It's written for Noreen, for my ideal patient. And you need to do the same thing. And anything else that comes along is jam on top. Because if you try to be too many things to too many people, your message becomes too washed out, too diluted, and it's not as effective. It shouldn't be about you and how great you are. And we will go through this on the About Us page. Normally what will happen is the website is all about how great we are, as in we care. We care more than the next guy, but everybody says that. That doesn't mean anything to your patient. Or we have these qualifications. Or come and see us because we are the most qualified. And we have done this course. We spent this long in college. Patients don't care. All they care about is, and nor should they, and we shouldn't take this personally, all they care about is what's in it for me. What can you do for me? When you get a plumber in and you go to his website, you don't look to see what qualification does he have, what letters does he have after his name, did he do 2 years in college or 1 year in college. All you care about really is you just assume he's done that, but you care, can he come in and can you fix that plumbing issue I have? And it's the same with us. Now, you might be listening to this and arguing that patients are making decisions based on our qualifications and that alone. So I would urge you, if that's what you're thinking, to start asking your patients, why did you pick me? And you'll find that very few of them will say, I picked you because you have a BSc or you have a master's or you got a 2-1 in your degree. They picked you because they heard in some way or other, or they were convinced in some way or other, that you were the place that could get them to where they want to be. And your website should be doing the same thing. You must present a message that you know will resonate with your ideal patient. That's more of what I'm talking about. So this is coming back to module 1, where we're working out who our ideal patient is. We're working out what message will resonate with them. And this is where we start to use it. Not only do we use it on the calls when we're trying to convert them on the phone, but we're also using it in our marketing and especially in our website. You need to have consistency of message and consistency of ideal patient. So the copy and the ideal patient that you're trying to capture on Facebook ads, on Google, and newspaper, it should be the same. So when they come to your website or to your landing page, they see the same thing again. There's no divergence in your message. Every page, and I mean every page, should resonate, should have that message, and it should offer opportunities to begin the conversation with your potential patients, i.e. to get them into that marketing funnel. So what I mean by this is that every blog that you have, every even your contact page, even your About Us page, should have some sort of call to action and some sort of lead magnet that you can capture that patient's contact details. Because you imagine that your ideal patient lands on your website and might look at 5 or 6 different pages. And the page that they're on when they decide, yes, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to download something, and you don't have that call to action or don't have that lead magnet, they have 2 options: click out of your website or go and look for that lead magnet. So you want to have it front and center in front of them. So the pages that you should have on your website include, now you can have more than these, but these are the ones you must have as a basic. And I would urge you, when you're building your site, just to stick with these to begin with, and then you can move on from that if you wish. And you do see some sites and they have, I remember my 3rd site had over 50 pages, way too many, too much time and effort put into it. I had almost every single condition that I treated mentioned, not anymore. So obviously you need a home page. You're going to need an About Us page, and that's about you, your clinic, but it's written in such a way that it's about your patient. You need a Contact Us page. You need a blog, and you need to update your blog regularly. You need various specific condition pages, a page for each condition. So instead of having a page, if you're a physio, for example, and you say conditions we treat, and they go to that page and you have 20 conditions written, you will have specific pages for each single condition. Now, I wouldn't think it'd be a good idea to have 20 different pages, 20 different conditions. Pick your best 4, 5, 6 conditions, the ones that are most profitable, that your ideal patient is coming in with. So if your ideal patient, if it was my clinic, and my ideal patient is, she's not running. So if you go to my website, you won't really find any information on running injuries, because that's not who we're trying to attract. We're trying to attract our ideal patient. You need a testimonial page. Now, I do understand that in a lot of jurisdictions this is simply not allowed, and if it's not allowed, then so be it. But if it is allowed, and luckily we're allowed where I'm living, and in a lot of countries you are, it is social proof. It allows your ideal patient to see somebody like them, and they're more likely then to resonate with them. And you need a privacy page. So this is needed if you're going to use Google or Facebook ads. You have to have a privacy page. These are usually fairly easy to find. You can reach out to us on the Facebook ad, in the Facebook group, and we will give you a copy of our one. But it's simply just terms and conditions type of page that Google and Facebook need, called a privacy page. And you need a terms page. So terms page is your business terms. So that you expect the patient to be on time, we don't do credit, that sort of stuff, which is different to a privacy page. Privacy page is more of a legal page. Terms is your terms and conditions. And I would strongly recommend you have a terms page, because it's always better to have it written down front and center. These are our terms of work. For when you have any sort of, should you have any misunderstanding with patients, that you can point to that. So every single page, like I said earlier, must use the new patients on tap approach to marketing, which is by using information marketing and direct response marketing together, giving that patient that free and useful information up front, and then having a call to action where you're telling your patient to directly respond by putting in their details or so on every single page. Never miss an opportunity to give that patient or a potential patient a chance to enter into your marketing funnels. You should provide the ability to book online easily. Now, most software systems that we use these days, Clinico, whatever happens to be, I use Clinico, they all have an ability to put a book online within the website. And you should trust your patients to do so. Now, we've been doing that for years, and we've never really had any issue. And we have about 12 different types of appointments, but we only really offer about 4 different types of appointments as a book online, because we want to make it nice and simple. So we offer really just the initial type of appointments. We don't offer much more than that. The important thing then is you want to make sure that when they do book online, that is very obvious. They can see it on every page, so a big button at the top. And also that you're not asking for too many details in advance of them actually coming. So I've seen before where the patient has never come to you before, you ask them to book online, and you're asking for their name, their email, their date of birth, their phone number, their address, their credit card details. It's too much. So the more details they have to fill in advance, the less likely they are to complete that form and press enter. And you don't want that. You want to just have the bare minimum that allows you to get that patient to book that appointment. So in my clinic, we simply ask for their name, their email, their phone number, their date of birth. That's it. And the reason their date of birth is asked for, so that should we already have them on file, it will match them up. Your users of your website should be able to connect to your team easily and immediately, if at all possible. So you can use chatbots such as Facebook Messenger. So Facebook Messenger can be used for free in your website. We would use live chat. So live chat costs, for us, I think it's €30 a month. And what it does is it allows the patient or potential patient to connect immediately while they're on the website with our staff and have a conversation via chat. We do cover this in later modules, but this is something you should be putting into your website. It also makes you appear much more a bigger clinic, a more professional clinic, because it tends to be bigger businesses that tend to have these facilities. Now, 80 to 90% of users these days will view your site on a mobile device. This has massively changed over the last 5 years even. And if you're not building your site that is mobile responsive. So mobile responsive means that when somebody looks on it on a desktop, it looks like it should on a desktop. And then when they click on it on a website, or on a mobile rather, it looks different. So it will change size to fit. If it's not mobile responsive, well, then you will not be shown, your website will not be shown by Google, which is the biggest search engine in the world. So if your website's not mobile responsive, you must change it to be mobile responsive. Most of the current software systems that we build them on tend to be mobile responsive. But if you have your website a few years, especially you have it on WordPress and you haven't had somebody really keeping an eye on it, then you could be stuck. Your phone numbers should be clickable. Because the person's looking on the website, what you need is when they see the number, they can click on it, it can ring direct. And that's fairly simple to sort. It's also preferable if you can track this sort of stuff using software such as What Converts and so on, so that you can see what people are doing, what happens when they click these numbers. So if somebody, for example, comes to Google Ads and they land on your landing page, instead of filling in a form, they click on the phone number and ring you direct, you're not really going to capture that in your lead funnel. So that's where you might need to have extra software to see how effective is it that I could find that a significant portion of my marketing spend is actually ending up in direct phone calls booking in. When you're designing your site, like I said, make sure that you view it on a mobile device. If you don't look at it on a mobile device, you simply look on it on a desktop, then it's not going to work. I remember when I was getting my third website designed, and I spent a lot of money and I got a graphic designer to do it. He designed it on a big Mac, huge Mac, 28 inches or something ridiculous. And then he'd send it to me and I was looking at it on the small windows and it looked terrible when I looked on it. And then I'd look on it on my mobile and it was worse again, and he couldn't get his head around this. And it took an awful lot of to and fro for me to kind of explain to him, my patients are not looking at this on a Mac. They're looking at it on a small smartphone, and that's what we need to make sure we're doing. So double check that before you go live. Okay, so here's an example of what I mean. So this is a landing page we use, and you can see here we use it for orthotics in one of it's Google Ads orthotics. And this landing page here, and you can see down the bottom we have our live chat here. This landing page, this is what it looks like on a computer, on a desktop, and it looks quite nice and so on, and it's all done correctly, and we'll go through all this in a little while. But then if I look on it on a mobile, it's a very different experience. So what we'll do is we'll go in here. This is the system I use. We use Kajabi to build it because it's just so simple. And this is what it looks behind the website when I'm editing it, you can see. Now what this does is it allows me to see what this looks like on different platforms. Now I don't use tablet because very, very few people. So it's desktop, and now we're going to look at it on a mobile. And you can see it looks entirely different. So what we have is we have our heading at the top, which we need it to be. We don't want the video at the top, or we don't want the wrong thing. So make sure that you're checking it like this. Now, if your software system doesn't do this, well, then you just simply send your URL of whatever page you're looking at to your own phone and you check it that way. But you can see the difference between this and this are massive. Yet 80% to 90% of my clients and almost 100% from Google Ads are looking at it this way. And if I didn't look at it this way and I simply looked at it this way, I would not see what they're seeing, and therefore would not be able to design my website as it should be designed, which is for mobile. So what we've done here now in lesson 1 is we've talked about mistakes that people tend to make. We've talked about what you need to make sure you have in your website generally, the types of pages you need to have. And what we're going to do next is we're going to move on now to discussing each particular page we've talked about in a bit more detail. So we'll see you in lesson 2.